What's going on, everybody? This is Eric, your ranting co-host here today. I am going to be hosting today's episode. Uh, Zach and I are very excited as our Jaguars managed to somehow beat the Bills today, so we're pretty stoked about that. And my Thunder somehow beat the Lakers earlier this week, so doing pretty good in the sports world for me. We've got a pretty exciting episode for you today as well. It's our NFL midseason review. So we're going to talk about what we got wrong and what we got right, what's been surprising to us, as well as we'll update the lockboard, and which that didn't go well for me, but we won't talk about that right now. And then finally, we're going to go around the NCAA and talk about the college football rankings. Where do we have the teams ranked? Where are they ranked right now? Just give you guys an update on that. So definitely going to be a lot to get into here. I hope you guys enjoy it. But for now, let me introduce you to the rest of the crew.
What's up, guys? It's Zach here. And like Eric said, feeling very happy. I almost had the very rare trifecta of USF, Tennessee Volunteers, and the Jaguars all winning in the same weekend. 2 of the 3 hit. But USF couldn't hold on against Houston. So that was the one game that I lost. But yeah, very happy about that and in a very good mood for this episode.
And what's going on, guys? It's Connor, the co-host with the most. And, pretty good. Seems like we've had a pretty good football week all around for most of us. I mean, the Steelers still have to go on Monday Night Football, but against the Bears. But UNC at home ended Wake Forest's undefeated season. So, go Tar Heels. And Appalachian State got another win, headed towards a potential berth in the Sun Belt Championship. So a good college football week. And, spoiler alert, I finally got some points on the lockboard. So, I'll say it. So it's been a good week. Hopefully it doesn't all get ruined tomorrow.
What's up, guys? It's Nate here. Pat's got another win today. For NFL, so that was good. They're looking better, better than I think most of us kind of expected coming in. So we'll talk about that later in this episode. So looking forward to talking about that rather than my lockboard this week. So we got something good to talk on here.
Well, I will say, Nate, you didn't have the worst lockboard this week. We'll find out what happened with that later. But for now, we're going to go around the shields. Like I said in the intro, it's our midseason review. So got a lot to talk about here with the NFL. So we're going to start with what we got right so far. And for myself, I predicted that Micah Parsons was going to be the rookie defensive player of the year. And he's off to a great start. I mean, if you watch Cowboys games, I mean, they did not have a good game today, but when you watch Cowboys games, he kind of lines up all over the place. A lot of times he lines up on the edge and rushes the passer. Sometimes he lines up at middle linebacker and drops into coverage and makes plays. He's kind of been a nice jack of all trades type of player for the Cowboys. And so really, other than Patrick Surtain, like nobody else has really been competing on their level. I guess they were the top 2, but it seems like Surtain got hurt today. I don't know the extent of his injury yet, but so Micah Parsons having a great start to his rookie year. He's definitely been a bright spot on the defense, and part of the reasons why the Cowboys defense has been a surprise and been so good this year. So I'm happy I got that right, especially since he plays for Susan's team. So that's like an even bigger bonus there. But yeah, so Zach, talk about the biggest thing that you've gotten right so far.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of things right. It was hard for me to choose just one, but I'm gonna
stroke the ego there. Look.
Yeah. But my pick was the Arizona Cardinals for this topic. I was definitely the highest on them going into this year. Kyler was my MVP pick, and I just thought this team, adding JJ Watt, which now he's hurt, obviously, but at the time, getting him and building up the defense, bringing in some veterans, I thought, they're made a lot of good moves, in my opinion, that I liked. So I figured they would be pretty good, and they're at the top of the NFC West right now. I think I had them second in my predictions, so kind of bold considering where they were coming from last year, like an average 8-8 team in a very tough division. I think a lot of people have had them third and fourth. So for me, I was a pretty big believer in the Cardinals, and they're living up to it so far. I was close. I was very close actually to throwing them in the NFC Championship game instead of the Rams, but I did go with the Rams. So that was what I got right. Connor, what about you?
Yeah, so I mean, didn't exactly have a good week this week. Offensive line really let him down, and he couldn't do much. But heading into this week, Josh Allen was the front runner for the MVP. And despite the bad week that he had this week, he is kind of getting helped out a little bit by the fact that some of his other competitors for the MVP didn't play this week or didn't have the best weeks. Kyler Murray did not play today. Tom Brady was on a bye week. Aaron Rodgers had COVID. So there was a lot of things that kind of contributed to helping him out a little bit here for this. But I mean, he's still on a great track for the MVP at the moment. I mean, the Bills, despite the loss to the Jaguars, I mean, the AFC is kind of a mess right now anyway, but they still figure to be one of the teams that's going to be there at the end for the AFC. And, Josh Allen's a big reason behind that, especially since they still can't get that running game going. Josh Allen's having to carry the team kind of like he did last year. So Josh Allen looking like he could be on track for MVP. I'm hoping he gets it. I'm hoping my early season prediction about the Bills going deep into the playoffs is correct as well. But only time will tell for that. So Nate, talk about what you got right for this season.
Yeah, so my predictions were kind of up and down, but one thing I did get right was the Cowboys being up on top of the NFC East. I know a lot of us had the Washington football team as the best team coming into the season, but I just couldn't go against the Cowboys. Not that I'm a fan of them or anything, obviously, but I just figured with that coming back after the injury he had last year, they've got such great weapons in CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, and Zeke is back healthy. So it's like I just figured offense, they got it set, and their defense looked like it had been, it showed some signs last year that it was, maybe starting to get better, and they added Micah Parsons from that you can see on the slide here, and I think overall they're, look like they're rolling through the East. So I really didn't feel comfortable betting on Washington again, and obviously I didn't think the Eagles or Giants were ready to push them either. So I figured that was kind of a safe pick, and it's been right so far. So we'll see how they finish out the end of the year, though.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I know Susan's going to be happy that out of the 4 things we talked about that we got right, that the Cowboys were 2 of them. So she's loving that over there. But so we all got things right, but unfortunately, we're all going to get things wrong too. So we have to transition into that. And for me, the biggest thing that I gotten wrong is easily the San Francisco 49ers. They just have not been good this year. I know they had the quarterback issue with are they going to play Jimmy G or are they going to play Trey Lance? And there was kind of a controversy there. But my thought going into the season was, though, that regardless of which one of them ended up playing a quarterback, that they had a good enough of a team around them to carry the game. I expected their running game to be strong. And, of course, they still have Kittle at tight end and Deebo Samuel. They had everybody back healthy on offense. And, last year their defense was ravaged with injuries as well, but they had everybody coming back healthy on defense. So I really thought this was going to be more like the team that made it to the Super Bowl a couple seasons ago, but that has just absolutely not been the case at all. And I was debating going into this week if I was going to put the 49ers being wrong or the Washington football team is my thing I got wrong. But when the 49ers when they let the Arizona's practice squad offense torch them today, I knew I just know I had to put the 49ers is what I got wrong. It was terrible, but so that's mine. And unfortunately, I am not going to like what Zach has for his wrong, but we have to say it. Zach, tell us what you got wrong, man.
Yeah, we do have to say it. So I have the Jaguars as what I got wrong. I had them finishing second in the AFC South. It definitely looks like they're going to either be third or fourth right now with the way things are going. Tennessee and Indy are at the top. And really, this was a couple of things, a combination of the Colts having so many players being injured at the start of the year and me not believing in Carson Wentz. And then also my optimistic bias as a fan. I was thinking, this team's before the season started, I liked the weapons that we had. And I really thought Trevor Lawrence was going to be amazing and stuff and have really good games. And the schedule to this point hasn't been the most difficult. Like they had winnable games when you looked at the schedule before the season against Houston, the Broncos, as some teams that games they could have won. And so I definitely for sure got them wrong. And they had a great win this week against the Bills, but they're a young team. They've Urban Meyer's made mistakes. Their coaches have definitely been underperforming. So I'm glad to see that they won this week, but 2-6, I definitely got it wrong that they'd finish second. Connor, what about you?
Yeah, unfortunately, we all also got Trevor Lawrence being Offensive Rookie of the Year wrong, so that's going to look bad on us. But maybe we shouldn't have bought into that. But for me, the biggest thing I got wrong was the Miami Dolphins. I know they were on the brink of the playoffs last year. They just missed out basically on a tiebreaker to the Cleveland Browns. So that wasn't good for them. And I figured, okay, they're going to have the quarterback situation figured out this year. It's not going to be the whole going back and forth between Tua and Fitzpatrick. It's going to be Tua. Tua, he didn't, in my opinion, I was like, okay, he doesn't need to light the world on fire. He just needs to be able to manage this offense. And, that defense of Brian Flores is pretty good. So, I figured they could make some noise. And especially since this AFC East, obviously the Bills were, coming back pretty much the same team, so they were going to be good. But, given that you're in the same division with the Jets, and also there was a lot of uncertainty about the Patriots coming into this season because, new quarterback, they got rid of Cam Newton, Mac Jones is going to be taking over, and also just all the new pieces they had, obviously they were good pieces that they went out and got, but, sometimes it takes a little while for teams to gel. So wasn't sure if that was going to happen for them. So I figured, okay, the Dolphins, they can be second place in the AFC East and potentially, have a spot at a chance at a wild card berth. And unfortunately, the Dolphins, they did get the win this week, but it was against the Houston Texans. So not really sure that's impressive at all. They're sitting at 2-7 right now. So definitely no threat of the Miami Dolphins making the playoffs anytime soon. And it's looking pretty likely that Tua Tagovailoa will not be their quarterback next season, considering that, they were even thinking about trading for Deshaun Watson, a guy who might not even play next year. So not looking good for the Dolphins. But Nate, talk about what you got wrong.
Yeah, so honestly, not that it's a competition, but my mistake might be the worst out of this whole slide. I have Baker Mayfield for MVP pick coming into the year, and he's been really the opposite of that. I've got the stats here. He's 20th currently in yards per game, 6 touchdowns, 3 picks, and he basically pushed Odell Beckham out of town last week, it sounds like, by his poor quarterbacking ability. So not a great season for Baker Mayfield. The Browns have been doing okay, but he's, at this point in the season, there's no way he could even be in the running for that unless, maybe, someone gets hurt and he starts throwing touchdowns like crazy without the help of Odell to catch them. So we'll see, but that's not my best take there for sure.
Hey, well, don't worry. Nothing will ever be worse than me picking the Atlanta Falcons to go to the Super Bowl that one year and win it. So don't feel bad.
Yeah, that won an award, actually.
Yeah, I was to say that, obviously there's no way we're going to get, everything 100% right. Otherwise, we wouldn't be a small podcast. We would have our own TV station. You know what I mean? If we were that good.
Maybe
and we'd all be rich.
The crystal ball podcast over here.
We'd be making millions off of bets and everything. So, it's okay to get some wrong. No big deal. Like, don't beat yourself up, Nate. We all did. So then finally, we're going to talk about teams or whatever that we have as biggest surprises. And if you're not watching on YouTube, you'll notice a theme as we go along. If you're on YouTube, you'll see it already. But so for me, my biggest surprise is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah. Now, obviously, like if you're looking at the division, they're 5-4. They're sitting like either tied for last or last, but in the AFC North. But just 2 weeks ago, they were the number 1 seed in the whole AFC conference. So I know it's crazy, what a difference of 2 weeks can make, but while they've had 2 losses in a row, this Bengals team has still been very good this year, and they've definitely been a big surprise. This is a team that most people probably had finishing last in the division, and maybe even not just last in the division, but possibly even being near the bottom of the conference. I thought their O-line wasn't any good. I didn't think their defense was going to be any good. I mean, the only optimism I had was their weapons that they have and Joe Burrow. Like, I wasn't really excited for anything else for this team. But the other players have been stepping up for the most part. And, Cincinnati sitting at 5-4, they still have a chance to, do some damage and possibly make the playoffs, which would definitely be a big surprise. So I got to give the Bengals a shout out for their performance so far this season. So Zach, tell us about what has been a big surprise for you this year.
Yeah, so as this goes along, you might notice a theme with the teams that we've picked. But mine's the Cleveland Browns, another Ohio team here who actually put a thumping on the Bengals. Two teams with number 1 overall draft pick quarterbacks, kind of interesting. But yeah, the Browns, every time they come up in the games, the schedule where we look ahead the next week, we pick 3 games and pick a winner loser. I'm always picking the Browns. I picked the Browns to win the Super Bowl. Very, very high on them. This goes back from last year and to this year now. Kind of a legacy team on the podcast that I've, picked to do better than most have. And they're surprising to me for a bad reason. And it's they had to cut Odell Beckham this week. They lost to the Steelers in a game I think they should have won. They just haven't looked like I thought they'd look. It's been up and down for them, and they still have a chance to turn it around and win the Super Bowl. But like if I could go back and change that pick, I definitely would. So that's a surprise to me. Connor, what about you? What's your biggest surprise?
Yeah, so we're going to continue the trend here. So I've got the Baltimore Ravens as my biggest surprise. And, the AFC right now is just such a mess. I mean, like, it's funny when you look at the 2 conferences. You have the NFC with very clearly defined top teams. And then you got the AFC where, like, basically everyone outside of, like, the Texans, Jets, Dolphins, and Jaguars, like, everyone else still has a chance to make the playoffs at this point. So it's pretty crazy. But assuming that the Titans were to lose today to the Rams, the Ravens would become the new number 1 seed in the AFC. It's pretty crazy that if that happens, it'll be 3 straight weeks of a different team being first in the AFC. We had the Bengals and then the Titans, and then assuming again that the Titans lose to the Rams, it would be the Ravens this week. And I really expected them to fall off a little bit, given that they've had a lot of injuries. And I will say for maybe this is like a little bit of a negative towards the Ravens is that why this has been a surprise to me is that they really haven't played all that well. Justin Tucker bailed them out in that game against the Lions. They had to really claw their way back against the Chiefs. They had to claw their way back today against the Vikings. The Vikings looked like they were putting a whooping on them. And also, like I said, with this team, given the injuries that they've had, they lost Gus Edwards, they lost J.K. Dobbins, they lost Marcus Peters. I always like to call their running back group right now the running back retirement home, because it's pretty much like a bunch of guys that are all past their prime, but are, they're all there. Le'Veon Bell, Devontae Freeman and Latavius Murray. But Lamar Jackson's playing well. He's starting to try and drum up an MVP type season. His throwing has gotten better. It's still not great, but he's gotten better at throwing. The defense has looked improved since the first couple of weeks. But I really expected less out of them. So we'll see how it goes. As they get into more of these division games. They've only played one division game so far. And that was a pretty thorough beatdown of the Cleveland Browns. So we'll see how the Ravens do later in this year. But like I said, I'm surprised that they could potentially be the number 1 seed in the AFC after this week. Nate, what about you?
Yeah, the fact that the Steelers are doing this good kind of surprised me coming, based on where I was coming into the season. Just the way that, obviously everyone knows Big Ben is old. He's coming towards the end of his run most likely, but I thought that would be a much bigger hindrance to them so far on offense, and it really hasn't. And they've been putting up, enough numbers to get by. Najee Harris has been great so far. It's been helping my fantasy team, which I am very happy with. But I think having a dynamic young guy like that, after he kind of went a couple years without it after James Conner kind of fell off a little bit and all that. I think that's helping them a lot, and their defense is has been tough as they have the last few years. So I think I just overestimated the how bad I guess Ben Roethlisberger was going to tank, and he really is surprised me there, and the whole team has surprised me there, competing for the NFC North there, which is definitely an interesting division, hence why it's we're all talking about it. But I think they're in just as good a place to win it as any of these teams. So be interesting to see how they finish out the season.
I'll say, if y'all haven't picked up on the trend yet, it was all the AFC North teams.
Right.
Oh, man. All right, guys. Good stuff there. We're going to transition now into our weekly picks, where we pick 3 games for the week and discuss them. So Zach is going to go first here. He's going to talk about the Saints and the Titans. So Zach, talk to us about how the Saints are going to beat the Titans.
Come on, laptop. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah. I definitely hope that's the case, Eric. But I'm not so sure. The Saints, they had the win against the Buccaneers when Jameis got hurt, and then today they had an almost predictable comeback against the Falcons. The Falcons known for giving up double-digit leads in games, and then the Falcons, Matty Ice leads them down on a drive to make a game-winning field goal, though. So the Saints, as I've said before to several people, are one of probably the 3 most unpredictable teams in the NFL, where you just don't know what you're going to get. You could lose to the Giants. You could beat the Buccaneers. You could lose to the Jaguars and then end up beating the Rams. Who knows with the Saints? It is so hard to predict. If you're gambling, stay away from this. So that's the Saints angle. The Titans, we're getting a chance tonight to see them play against the Rams. We're not going to know the result of that as we're talking right now, but their big thing is, how are they going to do without Derrick Henry? And it's going to be, I think this is going to end up being kind of low scoring. I think the Saints have a good defense here. Titans have a better offense, but I'm going to go with the Titans winning this game with a score of 24-20. Connor, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm going to agree with you that it's a close game, but I'm going to go with the opposite team. I think the Saints, I think this is kind of they're going to be this team that's going to, they've been unpredictable, but I feel like it's on a week-to-week basis. They're good, and then they're bad. They're good, and they're bad. And obviously this week wasn't exactly the best. They fell behind early against the Falcons and had to get back in the game, but then ended up losing. So I think this is going to be the good for them. I think, possibly we could see Taysom Hill in at quarterback this time, because Trevor Siemian, he was okay, but, with Taysom Hill healthy, I think the Saints would rather go with him over Trevor Siemian. So I think Alvin Kamara should be able to tear it up against this Titans defense. So I'm going to go Saints 27-24. Eric, what about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Connor here. I do think the Saints will win, not just because I'm a Titans hater. I feel like their
Pick them in
offense
the
is
lockboard, though. Pick them in the lockboard.
well. Watch the Titans be, or watch the Saints be favored, and then it would only be a 1-pointer. Yeah, who knows? I don't know what the spread's going to be on that game yet, but I do agree with Zach though in the sense I think it's going to be very low scoring. I'm gonna go Saints 17, Titans 13. And Nate, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree that it's going to be, for all you guys, it's going to be low scoring. Both these teams have great defenses. I think I'm going to go with, I'm going to have to take the Saints here. I'll do a 21-17. I just think that without Derrick Henry, the Saints really just don't have, I mean, the Titans really just don't have the edge they used to. And I think the Saints roster is just overall stronger.
Yeah, so 3-1 favor for the Saints over the Titans. Hopefully that's what happens in real life. And then Nate's
Even though Zach picked the Titans, I'm sure he's going to be rooting for the Saints.
Yeah, is that so in a way
Lockboard,
it's unanimous there, you know.
Right.
So
as long as nobody picks us on the lockboard and stuff, then then I can just
for sure. So Nate's Patriots are up next, hosting the Browns. Nate, give us your thoughts on this game and who do you think's going to win?
Yeah, so I mean, I really don't want to come across as the biased fan here, but I'm gonna take the Pats in this game. I think it's you know, interesting matchup there. The Pats I think, have all the momentum coming in. They've won a couple games in a row, and a couple games before that they lost. Close matchups, but I think that helped with their confidence. Kind of got that up that they can compete with most teams, almost any team on Sundays. And I think the Browns are kind of in an interesting spot. They won huge today versus the Bengals, which they're not in a bad spot, but I think with Odell leaving the way he did and all that going on around the team, I think it's kind of interesting to see where they're going to go from here. And this is a big game towards defining that. But I just think overall the Pats have the defense to slow down the Browns. And Belichick is such a great defensive schemer that I think if you can find a way to at least slow down Kareem Hunt and Chubb in that backfield, and really make Baker throw it the way he's been throwing this year, that's not going to get it done versus the Patriots secondary. So I think that alone should give the Pats every opportunity to win. Plus, Mac Jones has been doing, not lighting it up, but he's been doing enough to, keep them in games and put up enough points to win. So, I like the Pats to win here. Not going to be a high-scoring game, I don't think, but I'll go New England 21 to actually I feel like I said that for the last game, didn't I? I'm gonna go New England 24, Browns 17.
Connor, what about you, man?
Yeah, so I'm gonna agree with Nate on this and go ahead and pick the Patriots, mainly because to me it's gonna come down to it's gonna be a defensive struggle. And like I said, I agree with Nate that I think the other advantage that the Patriots have here is if you just look at the head coaches, like Kevin Stefanski versus Bill Belichick, I'm going to give it to Bill Belichick every time. The Patriots are also at home. And honestly, I feel like, obviously the Browns threw a whooping on Cincinnati, and that was pretty impressive. But I feel like Cincinnati is kind of they're in that sort of state of discombobulation, whereas, they had just lost to the Jets the previous week before. And then I think they just came out unprepared against the Browns, whereas this Patriots team is red hot right now. So the Browns it's going to be a different animal, especially going into Gillette. So, and I think, really the Patriots are going to know how to find a way to stop Nick Chubb. I mean, I looked at Nick Chubb's stats today. It was crazy because, they didn't even run the ball that much. He had something like 9 carries for 111 yards. So it wasn't even he just kept getting the ball and was just, that's how he got to his 100 yards. It was whatever was happening to the Bengals. They were just giving up huge runs every time. So I think the Patriots will be able to stop that, and I'm going to give it to the Patriots. I'm going to say they're going to win 20-17. Eric, what about you?
All right. Well, we already know who Zach's going to pick, but I'm going to disagree with Connor and Nate here, and I am going to take the Browns. And for me, the biggest reason why is, first of all, the Browns are starting to get healthy again. They were They went for a while there where they were ravaged with injuries, but they've been getting people back. And a big reason, too, why I'm picking them, oddly enough, is because of Odell Beckham. I mean, it seems like in the beginning of the season, when Beckham was hurt and not playing, the Browns offense was doing great. And then he comes back from injury, and then the Browns slow down and they struggle for a while. And they just, the chemistry wasn't there. And then now, like, they had the news that they're going to release him, and he didn't play in today's game, and they put a whooping on the Bengals. So for whatever, even though Odell Beckham still has talent, I believe, like, they just didn't have the chemistry with him there. Like, he just doesn't want to be there. And so I think the Browns are just too good of a team. Their defense seems like they're starting to get it together. The Patriots are in a roll, which I will admit. So I definitely don't disagree with that. But I really like the Browns' chances of going on the road and stealing this game and, getting back to contending at the top of the division. So I'm going to go Browns 27, Patriots 21. And Zach, what about your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, you already said it to everybody. You knew what I'm picking. I'm picking the Browns here. Really, I don't think it's going to be that difficult for them in this one. I think all they have to do with the Patriots, I believe, is just stop the run and then, score some points on this defense. And I think this offense, like you said, all the good things about Odell not being there now, and it's, finally, they don't have that drama or whatever was going on with that. And they can just play football. They can just play the Brown style of football, run the ball, set up the play action, get Baker. Baker, the one thing about him I'll say is every time like he gets ragged on by the media and everyone's like, "Oh, Baker's trash. Baker's trash." He always seems to respond the next week. Like that's what he did today against the Bengals. And I think it continues over. And I think they beat the Patriots here. It'll be tough on the road, but I'm going to say Browns 31, Patriots 20.
All right. So Zach going with a 2-score victory for the Browns there. So that one was an even 2-2 split amongst the crew. Let us know what y'all think if you're agreeing or disagreeing with who we've picked. Then for the last game that I'll talk about is going to be the Seahawks and Packers. Now, I will say one thing that kind of makes this interesting in a way is just seeing if both Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers are going to come back this week. Because if both of them don't come back, this will probably be actually one of the worst games on the list to watch. But I'm assuming Rodgers should be back, from the COVID as long as he tests negative again. And then the Seahawks were targeting this week after their bye as the return date for Russ. So if they both play, I think it's going to be a great game. I think it'll be not a full-on shootout, but I think it'll be a bit of a shootout just with the talent that, both of these quarterbacks have, as well as the, talent at wide receiver and, other skill positions that these guys have at their disposal. But ultimately what's going to set apart for me here is I do think that Green Bay's defense is definitely better than Seattle's defense. And I think they'll be able to do enough to get, enough stops to contain Russell Wilson and, maybe force an interception or some 3-and-outs and give Green Bay an advantage. So I'm going to go with a final score here of, I will say, too, if it comes down to a Mason Crosby field goal, though, then Seattle will probably win because Mason Crosby has not been good lately, and I'll probably rant about him in the lockboard later. But I am still going to take Green Bay in this game. I'm going to go with a final score of 28-20 for Green Bay. So, Connor, what about you?
So I guess for me, I would assume that Aaron Rodgers is going to be back. Who knows? I know the big thing for him is the fact that he's not vaccinated. So, if he doesn't come up with a negative test once those 10 days of his quarantine are over, then, it's going to look real iffy for him suiting up. And, I mean, Jordan Love, he didn't look terrible in this game, but, the Packers offense just looked out of sync. And obviously if Russell Wilson's on the other side, then the Seahawks are going to be firing on all cylinders. But I'm just going to go ahead and assume, like Eric said, that it's going to be Rodgers versus Wilson. And in that scenario, I have to give it to the Packers just because the Seahawks still haven't fixed their defensive problems. Like, their defense still looks really bad. And they've had these, people are running on them. Jamal Adams is still the most overrated safety in the entire NFL. He should be playing linebacker. He shouldn't be a safety because he can't cover. But I definitely think I agree with Eric that the Packers defense is a little underrated. They were getting to Mahomes tonight in the game. So I said, I'm going to go. I think it'll be a pretty easy win for the Packers, honestly, just because also the fact that they're at home at Lambeau, they rarely ever lose at Lambeau. So I'm going to have to go Packers 35, Seahawks 21. Zach, what about you?
Yeah, so I really don't think it's that complicated when these two teams play each other. You pick the home team. Like that just these teams have met a lot in the playoffs. They've met a lot, they've for the 2010s, they've been the classes of the NFC. I'm gonna pick the Packers. Kind of like what I just said, they're the home team. I think like Connor said, I think Rodgers should be back, and I think he'll be motivated to play even better with Jordan Love playing. Like I do think it's like, you guys miss me, sort of thing. Like, I really don't think the Seattle defense is that good. So I'll give the Packers the win. I'll say 35-24.
Nate,
what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can't bet against the Packers even without Aaron Rodgers having missed this week. I still think that roster is much better than the Seahawks from top to bottom, and like you guys touched on, their defense, or Seahawks defense, is not really built to stop anybody too well. So I think Packers should have no problem with this. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think if Russell Wilson plays, he always finds a way to put up points. But I am going to go Packers 28, Seattle 21.
All right, perfect, y'all. So unanimous sweep on that one. Now we're going to move on to the lockboard here. Definitely some mixed results this week. As a crew overall, this week was pretty solid. Everybody scored some points except for me. And so we also have a new leader in the lockboard, which is Zach. Zach managed to get 6 points this week. So he moves up into first place at 34. I laid a big fat goose egg, and so I'm still at 33 points in second place. Nate got a 3-pointer right this week. So Nate is in third, but not far behind at 31. And then as Connor mentioned in his intro, he is finally off the Goofy Dragon meme. He scored some points. You scored some points. So still on last at 24, but you're only 10 points behind first. So it's not like, it's
definitely
not
still not out of it.
Yeah, there's still we're basically like, this is our midseason review. So this is where we're at midway through the lockboard. So there's definitely, been no separation really. So still anybody's race to win. With that being said, we'll go to the results here. Zach had the first pick this week and the best results. So Zach, what went right? What went wrong for you? Let our viewers know, man.
Yeah, so round one, pick one, this is the pick that only I could get, nobody else had a shot at, was the Falcons over the Saints, which was a correct pick. It was also a 3-point pick. So with it being 3 points, with me feeling pretty confident about the Falcons able to win that against Trevor Siemian. They were on the road. That was their biggest, probably the reason why the Saints got favored so much as being the home team. But the Falcons, they played decent on defense, and they got out to the big lead, almost did Falcon things and gave it up, but they did make that field goal at the end of the game to win it. Second round, my pick was the Texans over the Dolphins. I just seen the Dolphins sputtering out of control, and the Texans, granted, they're not any better to talk about, but they're still a team, in my opinion. They play hard. They're a veteran team. They've got lots of veterans on the team, and I figured, the Texans, this is a game where, like, if they work hard, they should be able to beat the Dolphins. Tyrod Taylor was coming back. I thought he'd do much better in his return than he did. And then it just was flat out wrong. I mean, it really wasn't close, but the score made it look a little closer, I think. And then in round 3, I got the Knicks over the Bucks. So the first NBA pick of the year was correct as a 3-pointer. So that's how I got my 6 points. The Bucks without Middleton, they've been looking bad. They've lost a lot of home games, and this was really just looking at trends of two teams. Knicks, I think, trending up this season, and Bucks trending down. No Chris Middleton either, so that gave the Knicks an advantage. And it was a 3-pointer, so I saw value in it. And it was, close in the first half, and then the Knicks just pulled away in the second half. Really, the second half is where the Knicks won that game. But those were my picks that I got right, and I'll let Connor now share. I know he's happy to talk about some green on his lockboard now.
Unfortunately, yeah, it was only one green, but I will say I'm happy to see it. Hopefully, there's more in the future. But so I had the second pick. So I mean, Zach had the one pick that no one else could get. So I, had potentially supposed to be the second best pick, and that was the Cardinals over the 49ers. I know, that Kyler Murray was having his issues, but I was still surprised given how bad the Niners had been this year that they were favored. They were at home. I mean, it was a close spread, but I figured, the Cardinals top to bottom are still a really good team. So I felt like that was a pretty good value pick I could get there for 2 points. So I got that right. The Cardinals blew them out for the most part, which is crazy considering they didn't have Murray or DeAndre Hopkins, but they still did it. James Conner had a big game, and the defense managed to, for the most part, shut down the Niners. Then my second round pick was kind of my, I feel like everyone, for the most part, seems to have one of these per week. Like one pick they got wrong pretty badly. Mine was Auburn over Texas A&M. I figured, A&M, like they had that win over Bama, but other than that, they had looked really underwhelming. And Auburn looked like that they were, doing better than everyone expected. So I figured I'd go with Auburn in this one, but, neither team really looked like they wanted to win this game for the most part. The offenses in the game were terrible, but Texas A&M, on the strength of their defense, they got a defensive touchdown. So near the end, they were able to pull away. So that I got wrong. And then my last pick, unfortunately, that was another one of these close games that didn't go my way. Kentucky over Tennessee. It was a really good game to watch. If anyone was watching, I know Zach was watching it. But it was a close game, and unfortunately, Tennessee's defense was able to get the stop at the end against Kentucky, and Kentucky was not able to get the win. I figured that was one of those ones, like with Zach saying, who should be favored in this game? And I really thought Kentucky should have been favored. I know Tennessee had some good games, but Kentucky was at home, and they were the ranked team. They were number 18 at the time. So I figured, this could be a pretty good pick. I knew that Zach and Eric probably were going to stay away from it just because, you never really want to pick against your team on the lockboard. So I figured I was going to be able to get it. But unfortunately, good for Zach and Eric that UT won, but bad for me that Kentucky was not able to pull it out. So leading to my only 2 points. But it's 2 points, so I'll take it. Nate, what about you?
There we go. Yeah, so not the best week, as I kind of alluded to earlier. It could have been good if Wake Forest didn't collapse. That was my first pick. Picked them over UNC, and I checked, I think sometime like around halftime of that game, and they were up, I think like 3 touchdowns or something crazy like that. I was like, okay, cool. I've at least got some points this week for my lockboard. I was feeling good, and then I got an ESPN alert that UNC had came all the way back and beat them in that game. So that was kind of a bummer there. I thought Wake Forest was actually looking like a solid team to this point in the season, but they're got upset by UNC, so that not great. But my second pick was my lone winner this week, Boise State over Fresno. I don't obviously know a whole lot about either of those teams. They kind of always end up playing like the 10 o'clock games out in the Mountain West out there, so I haven't really watched a ton of either, but I figured I know Fresno upset They had a big upset win last week, so I figured they were probably getting a little bit over rated coming into this week. So I thought Boise State was a fine pick. So that one worked out well for me. A nice guess there to at least salvage a few points and kind of stay in the running. And then my last pick was Minnesota over Baltimore in the NFL, and that was, I believe, one of like my later picks. I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in it, but so the Vikings you talked about in previous episodes, how they haven't really been, they haven't been living up to their talent and their roster and all that, and they couldn't get it done versus the Ravens today. So not super surprised, but I kind of need to pick an upset, go for those 3-pointers to try and bring enough points to stay in the race here. So bummed it didn't work out, but I think overall, not the worst week ever. So how about you, Eric? Let's hear your picks.
Yeah, I definitely had a pretty bad week here. I will say too, like before I do my picks, just like watching these games that you have on the lockboard definitely makes the games a lot more interesting to watch. Obviously, since you have the rooting interest, we've talked about it, but it also makes it just so much more stressful to watch when the games are close or when stuff doesn't go your way, and
especially when it's two teams that you don't normally care about.
Yeah, so I had that happen to me in 2 of my games. My first 2 picks, I decided since I had the last pick that I was going to try to go more aggressive and just take like the highest possible points that I thought could happen. And so I started with Green Bay over the Chiefs. The Chiefs were like 7.5-point favorites, I believe. So that would have given me a 5-pointer. It's very rare, like getting into this point in the season, that there's a 5-pointer that you really truly believe could happen. So I went for it, but I watched Mason Crosby miss a field goal and then Mason Crosby get a field goal blocked and Jordan Love have a bad red zone interception. And even still, the Packers hung in there and still almost won. But just watching and in a way, I would have. Well, I guess my point with earlier is I would have almost rather just not watched the game and then just seen, oh, they lost, as opposed to like, man, if all this stupid stuff hadn't happened, like I probably would have got it right.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Connor's definitely had the most like close one. I don't know how many of them, Connor, that you like watched play out, but that one for me, like I watched that play out and that was painful. And then I sort of had it happen with my second pick. I went with Mississippi State over Arkansas, kind of like with Connor's deal with the UT Kentucky game. I was like, Mississippi State was the ranked team. Somebody sounds like they've got like they're crunching a bag or something. I don't know what's going on in the background there, but so I thought Mississippi State could get this done, even though they were on the road, but they were missing field goals, and I didn't see the end of the game, but I was at work and I was following it, and I saw Mississippi State get the lead near the end, and I was all excited about it, and then I was keeping track of it on the ESPN thing, and I saw that Arkansas had 4th and 1 at like the Mississippi State 25-yard line. And then I came back and I looked again and it said Mississippi State had the ball 1st and 10 on the 25. So I was like, oh, they stopped them. And then like I came back like a minute later and it said Arkansas got a touchdown with like 20 seconds left. I was like, oh my gosh, dude. Like screw you, ESPN Gamecast, for messing with my emotions like that. Because I thought I had the win. I was like, I got kind of like with Nate with the Wake Forest thing. I was like, I got these points locked up. I'm like feeling all good. And then I come back on a quick break and check and see they lost. So I was like, wow. So, and then Zach just had to kind of, rub it in and tell me that their kickers, they had like 2 kickers apparently, and they missed like 3 field goals in this game. I'm like, my God, dude, like, so those were, I had 2 very Connor-esque losses there I definitely know how Connor's been feeling after those, but my final pick was just ended up being straight trash. I went with the Hornets over the Kings. I know Connor feels my frustration on this as a Hornets fan, but they got beat by the Kings by like 30 points or something like that. And this is my second time picking the Hornets, and they've gotten beat pretty bad sometimes I pick
Second
them.
and final time.
Say what? What did you say?
Your second and final time.
Yeah, so I will most likely be steering clear of the Hornets. Like, even if somehow they're playing the Thunder and the Thunder are like 10-point favorites, I don't even know if I can pick them then. I don't know. I have not been able to trust the Hornets. My relationship with them is not good. So big fat 0 for me this week. But the only good thing for me with this is that I will have the first pick next week. So we'll look at the draft board here. Connor's going to stay in the same spot at second. Nate will stay in his same spot at third. And then Zach will have the fourth pick again. And Zach, for the most part, has done pretty well with the last pick. So we'll see if that trend continues or what. But my trend continued of every time I have the last pick, I go back to first. So I need to figure out how to fix that somehow. But
take some tips from Zach.
Yeah, watch what Zach does. So anyway, that's going to wrap up the lock board for this week. You can let us know, like, if you made any similar picks to that in the comments, let us know. But we're going to move on to around the NCAA. So the last week was the first week where the playoff rankings came out, and there was definitely an interesting deal in there. Cincinnati, who had been ranked number 2 in the AP poll, was ranked 6th. And some people felt like that might have been a snub. And then Michigan State was ranked number 3, but then they lost. So there's definitely going to be a shakeup in the rankings. So what we decided to do was come up with a consensus top 4. And we also left the odd team out as a group. So we'll start with who, like, we as a group finish it is going to be ranked 5th for our standings for right now. But Connor, I know you definitely had this team higher than us. So talk about, who we have here at number 5 and give us your thoughts on this team.
Connor, are you there?
Connor?
Sorry, my mic was muted there. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I hit the wrong button on the Skype call, but anyway.
Oh no.
Anyway, so So I got the Ohio State Buckeyes. As much as I loathe and despise them, I have them here. And I think the thing for me why I have them in the top 4 is that I think a lot of people are just forgetting about them. Just because, I mean, I have them at number 4, even though on our list they're number 5. But in my personal rankings, they're number 4. And listen, I think a lot of people are just forgetting, how good they actually are. I mean, C.J. Stroud is like a Heisman candidate right now. They had that one loss to Oregon, which obviously was not very good. They didn't look great in that game. But ever since then, I mean, they haven't exactly been playing the best competition. But, I mean, they've been winning in pretty convincing fashion. For the most part. I mean, they pretty convincingly took down Penn State. They trashed Indiana. They trashed Maryland. And then even though it wasn't the greatest win, they got the win over Nebraska this week. For me, really, the big thing for them is that out of all these, Big Ten teams that are left, and maybe out of all these teams that are, we're going to be talking about here, they have the toughest schedule left out of all these 5 teams. They have to play Purdue next week, which, Purdue's been very unpredictable. They beat Iowa, and then they went and got trashed by who was it who beat them? They went and got got trashed by Wisconsin, but then they came back this week and beat Michigan State. So who knows? Ohio State is going to be at home for that game, so they have that. But then, they have to play Michigan State, who's, coming off that loss to Purdue. We'll see what they do this week. And then they have to go on the road and play Michigan. So definitely a tough schedule left for Ohio State. But I think a lot of people, like I said, just forgot about them. I think a lot of people are overrating Oregon and Oklahoma. Oklahoma, even though they're undefeated, they have had a lot of games that they should have lost. They should have lost to Kansas, which is like not good when you're struggling against Kansas. They struggled against Kansas State. I think the thing for Oklahoma is we're going to see them fall here coming up when they have to play Baylor this week and they have to play Oklahoma State a couple weeks after that. So I think we're going to see them fall. And Oregon, I honestly don't know how they made it back up into the college football playoff rankings, given how bad the Pac-12 is. I said, as much as I hate Ohio State, I got to give them respect here. So, Ohio State Buckeyes. Boo.
Yeah, boo, but they are good. I guess for me, like, because me, Zach, and Nate, we all had our rankings the same, which is what got Ohio State out. But for me, just as long as a team is undefeated, I'm still willing to have them over a one-loss team. So if like if Oklahoma or Oregon were to lose,
Well,
and
Oregon's not undefeated, so
well, they're not. But if Oklahoma were to
head to
lose,
head. Now that's the weird thing.
yeah.
yeah, but like if Oklahoma were to lose, then yeah, I think Ohio State would. I think Ohio State is better than Oklahoma, but since Oklahoma hasn't lost yet, I have to keep them higher, which is why. But for the number 4 team, who I'll talk about, we're going to go with Cincinnati here. I mentioned earlier, like, some people thought they might have got snubbed, in the initial rankings. Obviously, there's still a few more weeks left and things can change. But I don't know. I think they should be in, which is why I have them, in the top 4. I'm ready for a team like this, to get a chance in the college football playoff. I mean, we've seen, sometimes teams slip in as a number 4 seed that's a 1 or 2 loss team and they still end up winning it. And then other times they just get, humiliated by whoever the number 1 seed is. And
Washington.
maybe that smaller school that was undefeated should have got a chance or something. Like, I know their schedule hasn't been great. I mean, but they do have a big win over Notre Dame, and that's what helps them, I think. If that Notre Dame game was another like Tulsa-esque type of team, then maybe I wouldn't have them here. But they do have a strong win on their schedule. They are undefeated. I do think as long as they remain undefeated, I do think they should get a chance. If they will or not, that remains to be seen. But I hope it happens. Give them a chance, and we'll see we'll see how it goes from here. So, up next we have our number 3 ranked team, and I believe it was Zach that was going to talk about this team. I don't know. I had a brain fart on the order there.
It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like Eric said, the Sooners here coming in at number 3 in our rankings. I can understand the case against them. They actually right now they have no wins against ranked teams, which is pretty crazy. But they are undefeated, and what the committee and what I am doing right now is I'm analyzing the current Oklahoma Sooners. Like, you have a resume, and then you have your current projections and stuff. And they're just a completely different team with Caleb Williams in at quarterback than they were with Spencer Rattler. They're winning games much more convincingly. The offense is clicking like they usually do, scoring like in the 40s and 50s and such. And I do know that their schedule does pick up, so they have opportunities to get more quality wins. But I'm a believer in this Caleb Williams kid, and I think, I don't like Oklahoma, much like I don't like Ohio State and some other teams basically all the teams.
Most of the teams in these rankings.
Yeah, they can all be screwed, but yeah. But yeah, for me, it's really about Caleb Williams and how much better they've looked with him in at quarterback, and for me. And for that reason, I think they're the 3rd best team right now. And I'll let Eric transition to number 2.
I will say very quickly, funny thing is about this Oklahoma team is the fact that, I mean, I will say so Zach, Eric, and Nate all had them at number 3. I would have had them at number 5. But it is funny considering that we all have them in the top 5. And in the latest CFP rankings, when they first came out, this team was number 8. So they're not even like really in sniffing distance yet of the college football playoff. So interesting to see.
Yeah, these rankings are interesting, man. But we will move on to number 2. Nate, take this away.
Yeah, so usually it's a little bit reversed here. Usually this team, Alabama, is the top team, but this year is a little bit different. They had that loss a few weeks ago versus Texas A&M, but I do think that it's going to be an interesting matchup. If things stay the way they are and neither of these teams lose, I think it will be a very interesting matchup. Them versus Georgia, presumptively in the SEC championship. I think Bama
Well, Georgia's already locked in to the SEC title game.
Right, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, the SEC East has kind of been a bit of a mess the last few weeks. So, yeah, so Georgia's already in, but assuming the Tide don't drop the game to Auburn in a few weeks, they'll be there too. And I think they have what it takes. Obviously, Georgia is, nasty this year. They're running through their entire schedule. Haven't really been pushed by anybody yet. I think Bama is the team that, on paper should be able to do it. I think Bryce Young has gotten things going since the start of the season. They've got, they're not quite as scary, I think, as past Tide teams, at least as from what I've seen in the few games I watched them. But they are, a talented roster as always. They're still very well coached. And I think if anyone's going to push Georgia this year, it's going to be them. So we'll see what happens in that championship game. I think they're still my number 2 team. And I still think that, given what we've seen from the playoff committee in recent years, even if they lose to Georgia, and that's I guess that'd be their second loss, so it'd be a little bit different, I guess. Maybe they won't make it in anyways, but
it'll depend on what happens in the other areas. Like I know it would have to be
right.
something like if Oklahoma went assuming Bama loses to Georgia, I would say they would get out. If Oklahoma went undefeated, they would get in for sure. And then it would have to be something like either Ohio State or Michigan would need to win out and they would get in, and then that would be their danger of slipping out. Because then I think Cincinnati would have a good chance to get in there too if they went out, presumably. So a lot would have to go wrong. A lot would have to go certain ways, I think, for Bama if that Georgia is their only loss. Because if they lose to Auburn, then then they're out. But I think just losing to Georgia, I think they still have a good shot to make it in.
Yeah, and especially knowing the playoff committee, they'll find some way to make that happen too. So.
I mean, they like to throw Alabama and Ohio State in there even when they don't deserve it.
Right.
I mean, we're not talking about Ohio State anymore, but I still have to call back to this. That year when they decided to let Ohio State in the CFP over Penn State, even though Penn State beat Ohio State and won the Big Ten championship, they still put Ohio State in over Penn State. So they find ways with these two teams.
Yeah, so not go to the number 1 team yet. I'm not gonna do a little drum roll here. Like number 1 is the Tennessee Volunteers. Oh wait, no, I mean the Georgia Bulldogs.
You mean it's not Appalachian State? What?
Yeah. Whoa. What's this G on the screen here? I don't know what this is about. Yeah, I mean
the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah. I mean this is a pretty obvious one. Georgia's been dominant. I think we were talking before we came on the air, and I think Connor said that Georgia hasn't given up more than 13 points in a game yet this season. I mean, it's just unreal. I mean, this season is theirs to lose. I will be surprised if anybody beats them. I mean, obviously, you never know what could happen, but they're undefeated and they're ranked number 1 for a very good reason. So that was obviously a unanimous vote amongst the panel. So, but anyway, guys.
I mean, I will say very quickly for them, this feels like Georgia this year kind of feels like the opposite of LSU from a couple of years ago, whereas like LSU, they were really dominant and really unbeatable behind the strength of that offense with like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. This Georgia team is the opposite. They're undefeated and really strong because they have one of the best defenses that anyone's seen in college football in quite a while. So
yeah, I definitely agree with that. Well, also, I guess before we wrap it up, give a quick update here because we're recording this Sunday night. So the Rams-Titans game is going on, and the Titans are putting a whooping on the Rams right now. So maybe I'll change my pick to the Titans. I don't know. But obviously, I don't want to do that. But Titans looking good right now, up 21-3. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I think we gave out a lot of good content here. So definitely let us know in the comments your favorite parts, what you agree with, what you disagree with. If you have any questions or anything you'd like us to cover in an episode, let us know. You can follow us on Twitter at clutchcrewsport. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, go ahead and do that. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And remember, be clutch.
Bye.
See ya.
For Eric, peace.
Yeah.